A couple of my projects that are relevant to what we're doing today are this one, the iris lamp. So basically, it's a mechanical iris, and you rotate the disc, and this mechanical iris opens up, and there's a light inside that glows. So I did this whole thing in Fusion 360. All the 3D model is here too. You can download the archive file here and see how it works. But just to give you an idea of what this feature can do, the joints, all these little flags here are mechanical joints. So if I grab one of these little leaves, and pull it like this, you'll see that all these joints are connected to parts that make this mechanical action. So I made this thing entirely in 3D, and the joints were really helpful to understand what the design needed to be. Without that, I think it would have been really difficult for me to draft this whole thing out and draw it and figure out all these arcs and everything. It would have taken a lot more time. Whereas this way, I was able to just kind of look at an example and make a bunch of mechanical joints and then get it to work. So yeah, this is the concept we're going to learn today. So if you go to the data panel here, that's the little grid button up here. Click the back button if you don't see your name at the top. And then scroll all the way down to the bottom and go to Workshops and Events. Then go to EDU Design Now. And then Hour of Making. That's this series of webinars. You'll see 4 steps for the bottle lock. Okay, so as I'm going, you can stop and you can pick up these different you can start at the different steps. You can open these files and follow along if you've fallen behind. But today, I want you to start with this one, Bottle Lock Step 0. So double click that, and that's going to be your starting point for your file. I'm not going to show you how to make this bottle because we've already covered, more or less covered it in the other webinars, and it's kind of tedious and we need to save some time here. If you want to see how I did it, go to the 3D printing class and sign up. And then I show you how I did that here in lesson 7. It's really simple. It's just a bunch of lofted circles on different planes. So this is what we'll start with. And then here's a finished product. This is from the webinar we did yesterday. So what you're going to make is this solid piece, and then there's a mechanical joint, and there's a cutout in the middle, and there's a little pin slot joint here. So if I turn that one off, you'll see that this half has a pin, and then this half has a hole. All right, and yeah, and there's a mechanical joint. That's basically it. It's a pretty simple model, but as you can see, there's a lot of features to design here, so we should get some pretty good practice. So going here to Bottle Lock Step 0, that's our starting point. We're going to need to make the basic form of this object. And remember, when you're designing anything, you're always thinking about things in terms of primary shapes. Like, what are the things that I can break, the primary shapes I can break down this object to? So if I look at this from the top, I'll click on top over here on the view cube. I'll rotate the view so I can see the top. Really all this is one circle bounded by these 2 arcs. So imagine these arcs being, the sides of a circle. And then there's another circle over here and another one over here, right? So this circle on the left and this circle on the right are both the same diameter. So the thing's symmetrical in 2 ways, actually. And then the other part is there's these lines here. So these are these tangent lines to the circles. And those things together make up this diamond shape. So let's make that. I'll go here, and just like anything else, you'll start with a sketch. But remember to always go to Create, New Component, and start there. Empty component is what you want. It's a good habit to get into. It helps you kind of organize your files, and we'll get into more about what that means later. But off the bat, just remember that the browser is your friend, and it's always a good idea to pay attention to the browser over here. So you can click these little arrows and see what's in all these different folders, basically. So we just made this here, component 2. That little black dot tells us that it's activated. And we know it's activated because we can see that the body of the bottle over here is kind of ghosted, right? It's transparent. I'm going to rename this bottle. Just that's going to help me organize things later on. So now that I'm in my component, I'm going to make the sketch that sort of bounds the primary shape of the object I'm going to make. So I'll click on here, create sketch. That's the first option in your sketch menu. By the way, guys, your menus might look a little different from mine. You'll probably see some different icons. That's because I've kind of customized mine. But remember, anytime I'm going to one of these menus, you can click the down arrow here, and it'll be in that list too. So if it doesn't look like it at the top, don't worry about it. So anyway, create sketch, first option. Now it's asking me for a plane. I get a heads up display by the cursor that tells me it wants what it wants, right? So I'll click this planar face on the top. That'll be my starting point. I'm going to turn off the bottle because that's just going to get in my way. I did that by clicking the little light bulb over here in the browser. And then I'm going to go to sketch, circle, center diameter circle. That's the first one. And I'll click this. And trust me when I say 38 millimeters is a good size. And that's kind of my starting point. So this is, again, the big circle here, right? So now I'm going to need the smaller circle that's going to be tangent to this, and then I'm going to have a couple of tangent lines. Now, I'm going to do this a little differently than I've done it in the other two webinars because it's I'm going to show you a really good tool here, which is constraints. It's a great way to sort of constrain your drawing, right? It's a good way to control geometry and give yourself the opportunity to make changes later if you want. So I'm just going to kind of arbitrarily place the center of my circle over here and move the mouse out, and then I'll say 10. That's a good diameter because I've tested that out before. Now what I'm going to do is constrain it to this to give me the right orientation. So in my sketch palette, which comes up on the right, I'll go down to tangent, and I will make this tangent to this, right? Now this little icon comes up to tell me that it's tangent. Then I'll click on horizontal vertical, and I'll click on this and this, right? Now notice the line turned black. Right here it's blue, but then when I did horizontal vertical, now it turned black. That means it's completely constrained. So what that means is I can, sorry, I had to hit escape to get out of that tool. If I double click on this diameter dimension, which already came up, I'm going to change this to like 20, for example, and you'll see that it remains tangent and horizontal, right? So that's a useful thing, especially when your models get more complicated, especially if you want to make changes too down the road. Now I'm going to make my tangent lines, okay? Back to this one. I'll go to sketch, line, and then I'm just going to draw a line roughly tangent over there. And now I'm going to use those constraints again. So I'll click on tangent, click, click, and then I'm still in that tangent tool. See how it's highlighted? Click, click, right? And now you can see that, again, that line is black, and I've got these tangent indicators here. These little symbols tell me that that line is tangent. Another way to do a tangent line, I'll just show you a different method, is go to the line tool, and then just click and drag on the circle, and you'll see that it's staying tangent, right? So, and then I click there, and it's going to snap to tangent to the other line. I get that little tangent symbol again. And once again, you'll see those constraints came up. It's got its own constraints. I didn't have to make them over here because that was part of the drawing operation I did. And again, that line is black. So watch what happens when I change this to 20. There we go, right? So those stay tangent. This diameter changes, things stay horizontal. This is a very useful tool when you want to make changes later, things get more complicated. Okay, now I'm going to do a line vertical here, just kind of an arbitrary length, because I need a reference to mirror this part. There's no point in me drawing all this stuff again like I did on the other side because this thing's symmetrical, right? So with that vertical line there, now I've got a reference I can use to mirror this stuff to the right side. So if I go to sketch, mirror towards the bottom, I can click on these objects here. I don't have to hold shift, it just adds them to the selection. Always pay attention to the pop-up window over here. It's going to tell you what it needs. Then now I've got those selected. I want to click on select over here to pick my mirror line. Select, I'll click that. And now you'll see there's a preview of what I got on the other side, right? Enter. And again, watch what happens. Let's change this to 15. And we see that this happened on the other side. The reason it changes is that it's got these constraints, right? Mirrored constraints. That means whatever's on this side is referenced over here. So now we have the basic shape that we can work from. So I'll stop sketch, and then I'll orbit to kind of see it in 3D. I'll turn my body back on just so I can kind of have a reference. Now I need to make this into a 3D object. So I'll go to Create, Extrude, and now I just need to pick all these yellow closed profiles here. Again, I don't have to click Shift to do that, right? So I drag this up. 5 millimeters is a good thickness on the top, and I need a thickness on the bottom too. So instead of doing 2 operations, I can go to my my pop-up window over here and change direction to 2 sides. Now I've got 2 independent arrows I can drag to give me the size I want. So I just drag that one at the bottom down by 15. The one at the top goes up by 5. And if I click OK,
Hey, John,
yep,
sorry to interrupt. Can you show, so there are some people who cannot find the folder. Can you go slowly to the data panel and also tell them about the back arrow next to the name
yep, no
and tell
problem.
them to scroll down completely down to
Yeah,
the end?
all right, yeah, no problem. Okay, so if you go to Show Data Panel, it's the icon on the top left. It looks like a little grid. So I click that. Then you'll see here it says Workshops and Events. That's because I was already in that folder. So if you're looking at this and you don't see your name here, click this little arrow, the back arrow. It says Leave Data Details. So again, that's in the top left. If you click that, it'll take you back to the main folder. So what you should see is your name and then My Recent Data. And then you'll probably, the next thing you'll see is Autodesk 360 Experience, because that's just by default. All these other folders are projects. These are my projects I've organized stuff in. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see the last entry down here under Samples is Workshops and Events. Double click that. Then the next folder is EDU Design Now, because remember this is the Design Now series of webinars. Double click. Then Hour of Making is the one we're in now. Double click that. Then you just double click on Bottle Lock Step 0, and that'll give you the starting point. In just a minute, we're going to be here at Step 1. So you might want to just start with that in a minute, or of course you can click on this and go ahead, but it's probably going to be hard for you to catch up. So you might want to just wait for the next step we're about to do here to do this one, Step 1. Okay. All right. So we've got our body, right? We've got this shape, and it's our starting point for this object. So everything we do now is going to be more or less additive, subtractive of that one thing. So the next thing we're going to need here is a void, right? So if you look at the underside of this, you'll see if I click and drag this, there has to be a void, right? Because it's got to clamp onto the thing. So back here at Step 0, we'll make that. So I'll do that by creating a sketch, and I'm going to use the revolve command to cut it out. I'll go to Sketch, Create Sketch, and then I need to click in one of the sides here, either this plane or this plane, and this one's fine. So I'll just click on that. Then I'm going to use this bottle here as a reference. That's where I'm going to get the lines that I start this operation with. Okay. So I'll click on Sketch, Project Include, Project. So this tool is going to give me the lines I need. Now it's important that in your pop-up window over here, you pick bodies, not specified entities. Specified entities, I think, is the default. You want it on bodies, because look what happens. Specified entities, right? I'll click that, and then I'll click this, and you'll see it's just giving me. It's not actually giving me the whole shape of the thing. It's just giving me lines that represent edges, right? It's not giving me lines for the sides of this thing because it's like a cone. So it doesn't recognize that in the specified entities selection filter. So again, sketch, project, include, project. Then click on bodies over here, and now watch what happens. I'll click on this, and now you'll see it gave me the full outline, right? Those lines are pink, which tells me that they're linked to the body, okay? Turn that off. So if I were to change this body, the lines would change, right? Because they're linked to it. It doesn't really matter for our purposes. So I just turned bodies off so it doesn't get in the way. Now, this cutout, I could just revolve this and the bottle might fit. But the problem is the tolerances are not nearly precise enough to just fit everything exactly as it should, right? So if I go over here, take a look at the 3D printing class. If you go to lesson 6, the fit tests lesson, you're going to see how to make this project. So what I've given you here is a model that has a bunch of posts and a little box with a hole in it. And what happens is each one of these step down by a steady increment. I think it's 0.5 millimeters. I think it's zero point 0.5, or maybe, yeah, I think it's 0.5, 0.05, sorry, 0.05 millimeters stepping down. So this one over here would be 1, right? This would be 9.05, I'm sorry, 0.95, 0.9. In other words, these posts are getting slightly smaller than this hole, right? And the reason you need to do that is because the machine's not precise enough to give you exact fit. Very few machines are, right? So this helps a lot in making sure things fit together nicely. And this model, when you've printed it, is going to be really useful too, because then you'll get a sense of, okay, I need this offset, this tolerance if I want something to move. I'll need this tolerance if I want it to fit together permanently. I'll need a different tolerance if I need something to fit together but then be able to come apart. Very useful tool to have. I have mine stuck to the side of my 3D printer all the time. Okay, so anyway, that means we're going to need to offset these lines by a distance that I know works, that I've tested with my fit tests object. And then I'm going to use that to make the cutout in this object here. Okay. So to do that, I'll go to Sketch, Offset, and then I'm going to click on these lines. Notice it's only giving me one line here, and then I would have to go around and click each one individually. If I just click on Chain Selection in the pop-up window, it's going to pick all the lines that are connected at points. So click that. You'll see it by default, it wants to go to the inside by 1 millimeter. That's not what I want. I want it to go to the outside, and my offset needs to be 0.25. So in this case, it's minus 0.25. And I know that, like I said, because I've tested it. Enter. And then you'll see we have this little profile that's a 0.25 millimeter wide gap. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is click on line. And this is going to give me a center line through the middle. And I'll show you why that's useful in a minute. So go down here to the midpoint. I know it's a midpoint because the little triangle icon comes up. So click that. And I go up here and I can just go high as I want. And then again, that little blue constraint at the bottom tells me that I'm at a right angle, right? It's going to snap to that automatically and then escape to get out. So now, instead of 2 big profiles, I've got 1, 2, 4, basically. So it's cut in half. This is what I'm going to need to make my revolve command. Stop sketch, go back here. All right, I'm going to turn the bottle back on just to demonstrate a point. You're actually better off with it off, and I'll explain that in a second. So say your other geometry is turned on, and now we're going to make a new piece of geometry, a revolve, that's going to cut this out, okay? So if I go to Create, Revolve, then first it wants profiles, right? So I'll click this one and that one, the little skinny one I made. Then it wants an axis. I'll just click on my center line. And now you'll see that looks good. It's cutting out, it's red, so it's showing me what it's going to do. But since my bottle's turned on, this is also going to cut my bottle out completely. I don't want to do that, right? I need to keep that. So there's a new feature here, which is great. it says objects to cut in the pop-up window. Click that little arrow, and you're going to see there are two things that it's cutting, the little check boxes, right? I don't want the bottle to be cut. So if I uncheck that, now you'll see the bottle is staying, but it's only cutting out of my new component over here. So if I click OK, there we go. So you can see this ghosted bottle, and you can see the cutout. And if you look closely, you'll see that it's offset by 0.25, giving me enough room to make sure the clamp will fit on the top of the bottle. Let's do that again. So to make that revolve, I go to Create, Revolve, click on my two profiles. Axis is this. Objects to cut, turn off bottle, click OK, and there we are. So now we have our basic form with a cutout for the bottle. That is step one. So if you look back in workshops and events here, if you open step one, it should be here, right? So if you want to catch up and work with us, just double click on that and we'll keep going. Turn this off. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is cut this thing down the middle, right? I look over here, that's the obvious next step. I need to cut this thing into two halves. That's easy, so I just go back here. Then I'm going to go to Modify, and then Split Body. It wants body to split, which is this thing. Okay, and it's starting to give me this glitch. Again, this is kind of a new thing. It's not letting me click on stuff. This will probably be fixed in a couple weeks. Remember, Fusion is always in development and releases come out all the time. So if you notice a glitch, definitely say something on the forums, but in all likelihood, it's going to disappear with the next release. So I'll right click here, Bottle Lock Step 0, and then go to Activate. And then I'll just right click here and then activate that one again. And I should be able to click on stuff now. That's just like a quick fix I found for that little glitch. Okay, anyway, Modify, Split Body, and then Body to Split is this thing. And then Splitting Tool, click that, and you'll see the origin planes come up. And I want to click this, sorry, not that. Click the X. I want the plane back here. It's wanting to select the bottle by default. I don't want that. I want this plane down here. So I'm going to left click and hold. Sorry. Left click and hold. And then you'll see this little menu come up. And I can pick anything that's under the cursor. So I want that XY face. And now you'll see with the preview, it's given me a splitting plane right there. And that's good. That's what I want. Click OK. Now we got two halves. The next step we're going to do is joints, right? So in order to make joints, we have to have separate components. So I'm going to show you how to do that next. Before I go that far, let me just repeat that last one though. Modify, Split Body, pick the body, click on Select, wave over the thing you want, hold down left click, and then until you see what you want, which is XY in this case. And it's cutting through. Click OK. Now, when I look at my bodies over here, in my bodies folder under components, turn that off, got two different bodies. Like I said, to make a mechanical joint, we're going to need components. They don't work with bodies, right? So I'll just click both of these, shift select, so I've got both of those bodies, and then I'll right click, create components from bodies. Now I've got two components. So before we go any further, let's properly name all our stuff. So I'll call this clamp. Then this one will be half 1. This one will be half 2. Sorry, half 2. It's not so important when you have a small project like this, but when things start to get more complicated, trust me, it helps a lot to like pay attention to this and name your stuff. Also, if you're working with other people, you do name your objects or get fired. So, okay, two halves, right? These are separate components. I can click these and drag them. You can see them like that. Can't do that with a body. I want to make this mechanical joint before I go any further. And the reason for that is that this joint is going to inform what the design is. It's going to inform the way things are shaped. So I'll go back here and I'm going to go to Assemble, Joint, that first option. Now, the first thing you want to do is under Motion Type, change it to it's probably rigid if this is the first time you've used it, change it to Revolute. You want a rotational joint, okay? Then you got to click both of your components, right? Component 1, component 2. So this little cursor lets you pick the component, but it also, it's going to snap to these points. And since it's a revolute joint, it's going to see that as the plane of rotation, right? The axis of rotation. So if I click on this thing and let that little circle snap to that point, that's the point I want, click that, then I've already got that rotation point, right? Then on the other one here, I'm going to click the same point. And then you see it flips it upside down. That's not what I want. It's backwards. So all I have to do is click the flip button right there to put it back where it wants to go. Then if I click animate, I can get a preview and see how it's going to rotate. And that looks good. That's what I want. So click OK. Now we got a joint. Let's do that one more time. Assemble, joint, component 1. I can click anywhere on it that's not on a point to start, and then pick a point. It's going to snap to all these points now at that point. So I can do the same thing here, or I can just click on that point, click, flips it upside down. So I click flip, and then click animate to see the rotation. It looks good. So click OK, and there we have it. So now I want to click and drag this to see it work, right? So I click and drag, and it just moves the thing all over the place. So what's going on? Why doesn't this work? It should be opening and closing, right? So the reason it doesn't open and close is that none of these things are grounded. They're just they're connected to each other. So when you click and drag, it'll just move because it sees it as this independent object in space. So to fix that, all I have to do is right click on one of these components in the browser, and then click on ground. And then you'll see that little pin icon come up. It tells you that this thing is not going to move now. It's grounded. So if I click on half 2 and rotate, there you have it, right? Now it's because this thing is staying in place. I can't move it. So I can rotate this one. So like I said, it's a way to kind of get a preview of what this thing needs to look like, right? So if I rotate this and look and think about it, it's pretty simple actually. It's just all I have to really do is complete the circle and cut it in half in the middle, right? You can see the finished product over here. So there's sort of a complete circle on the top, and then a cutout circle on the bottom. On the other one, half 1, complete circle on the bottom, cutout on the top, and then like I said, there's a pin hole connection, right? So let's get to work on that. Before I go any further, though, I'm going to right-click and go to Appearance in that pop-up menu. Click Appearance. And now I'm going to use some materials in here to distinguish these two things. So I'll go to Plastic, Opaque. Let's go with yellow and red. Okay, close. So now I've got 2 different colors. It's going to make it a little easier for me to distinguish between parts. Okay, so to make these features, right? This feature here, imagine a plane going horizontally through everything, cutting through. That's the plane we're going to start from and sketch our parts from. So I'll go over here to Bottle Lock Step 0. Then I'm going to make a midplane. So under the Construct menu, I'll go down to midplane, click the top and the bottom. Now I got a midplane, right? That's it. So this is going to be my reference plane to sketch on. So one more time, Construct, midplane, click the top, click the bottom. Now I have a midplane, right? So I'm going to go to Create Sketch, click on that plane, look at it from the top. Now I'm going to use these 2 faces as my reference geometry to make my new features. So I'll go to Sketch, Project Include, Project. And in this case, look what happens when I click on, see selection filters on bodies, click that. There's a bunch of other weird stuff that comes in here, right? If I look here, I'm going to see, okay, there's a bunch of points there. That's from the cutout thing on the inside. It's a little messy. So I'm going to do, instead of bodies, I'll do pattern features just to show you the difference there. So specified entities, click on this, and this. And now you'll see it's a nice, clean geometry for both of those, right? Doesn't matter so much for what we're about to do, but it's always good to keep things as clean as possible. So I projected those. I can turn these off. You can see what I'm doing a little better. And then remember, on the left, we're going to need a circle. Really, on both sides, we're going to need a circle. So over here, I've got the hasp, right? That's cut out. Think of this as a circle profile, right? Look at that from the top. So that's kind of where the hasp goes. Then on the other side, that's also a circle, right? So we're almost kind of redrawing some stuff from earlier, but it's okay. It's good to have a couple of different sketches so you can kind of, to keep things from getting too messy. So I go to sketch, circle, and then I'm just going to draw my circle. So I go from this point to this point, and it's black because now it's constrained, right? It's a concentric constraint right here because it was at a center point of an arc, and then it's a coincident constraint over here because I clicked on this point, right? So it's black, and that means it's going to follow along for the ride. So if I were to go back to that earlier sketch and change that diameter to 15 millimeters, for example, this would change too, right? Do the same thing over here, click that. And then this side is going to be where my hasp feature is. So now I'll click on line. I'll just draw a vertical line here. It's going to snap to vertical. Enter. Actually, get rid of that. And yeah, so now I need a real dimension here because I know the dimension of my luggage lock. So again, I'll go to sketch, sketch dimension. I'll go from the center point to this line here. And you'll see it gives me a little dimension there. So it's telling me what it is already, but dimensions also mean that you can control what the dimension is, right? So it's 7.8 something something. So I'm going to make it 8. Enter. So now I have like a whole dimension. And then I know that this is 5 minus 8. So that's 3 millimeters right there. And that's good because I know my bottle lock, my luggage lock loop is less than 3 millimeters, right? So this is going to work just fine. Okay, so that's our starting point. But before I go any further, remember, I need tolerances over here, right? So for these cutouts, I'm going to need 2 different profiles to work with, okay? So I'm going to go to sketch, offset, and then this is the one I'm going to need to offset right now. So I'll go 0.25, enter. Okay, so now I've got, these are the profiles I'm going to work with to make my cuts and stuff. So I'll stop sketch and look here, and this is going to be the sketch we work from now on. Okay, so I'll turn these things back on, and I'm going to start with half 1. Okay, so let's turn this one off for now. Right click on half 1 and then activate. So now all the things I do are going to be they're going to happen just to this part, right? If I make new geometry, it's going to automatically join to it, cut from it, and so on. So it's a good idea to kind of keep within these components. Makes things easier to see, and it also kind of controls your timeline down here. We didn't get into that much, but when you go to an object, you can, if you're working within a component, your the commands that happened in the timeline are going to show up here without all the other stuff. So it's a little easier to control things later on. Okay, so first I'm going to extrude this down to give me that, that finished circle on the bottom. So I'll go to extrude, click on this half circle here, and then this point. And you'll see that it joins automatically. And since I clicked on that point, it gave me what I wanted, which is 10 millimeters down. But that point, when I clicked on it, also made a constraint. So if I were to make this thing taller, for example, like this solid piece taller, this would go along for the ride as well, right? It would get longer according to that. So it's important that I clicked on that little point down there. So okay, and you'll notice our sketch disappeared. So I'm going to turn that back on. Sketches disappear when you make geometry out of them. So I just opened my little sketch menu here in the clamp component, turn that on, and now I've got my sketch back. Now for the cutout, I need to do the bigger profile, right? I need to do the profile that has the offset to it. So I'm going to cut through with two profiles now. Whoops. So go back here to extrude. Now I'm going to click this profile and this little one here, right? Up to the top. I can click the top plane. That'll also give me a constrained extrusion. Okay. And you'll see that, those are a little different right there, right? There's a little bit of an offset. And that's good. That means my thing's going to work, right? I can rotate it. All right. So that one's done. So I'm going to right click over here on half 2 and activate. Turn it on. Turn off half 1. And I'll make the other side. So I'll extrude this part, just this one, not the offset, right? Up to here. Then click OK. And then I'll extrude this and this down to the bottom, to this point. Snap to that point. You'll see it's automatically cutting through that too. Click OK. You can see there's a little offset there, right? So when I turn this one on, and go back and activate the clamp, like the upper level, see there's a gap in between. That's good. Now I'm going to cut through both of these, so it's a good thing to have this component activated, clamp 1, the upper level. So I'll extrude these two planes, and again it's asking me to pick this plane, so I'll just left click and hold, go down to that profile, click the next profile. Now I want to extrude it so that it cuts through by 3, right? 1.5, I guess. But I want it to go both ways, right? So click on this and go with symmetric. And that looks a little small. Let's make it 3. So now I have a 6 millimeter deep object. So the direction is symmetric. That means it's going to, whatever I do here, I can pull this, it's going to go both ways, right? The default operation is new body, but I want to change that to cut. Now it's just going to cut through whatever it's crossing. And that's good. I want it to cut through both parts, right? So objects to cut, both of these are selected. So I'll click OK, and I'll turn that sketch off. And now we can see we're getting close, right? We need a hole and a pin over here. Okay, so that's our next thing to draw. So once again, I'm gonna create a sketch in the main component here, in the clamp component. Let's just turn this one off for now, and I'll go to create sketch. I'll just click on this face right here, and then I'll make a circle in the middle, and let's make it 6 millimeters. That's a good diameter for the pin. And then again, I need an offset for the hole, right? So I offset, sketch, offset, click here, and then 0.25. So stop sketch, and that's going to be my sketch I can use to make both of these objects, right? So I'll start with half 1, right click, activate, and then I can extrude, create, extrude, click this plane and this plane, go to the underside and just pick that face so it'll automatically cut through. Click OK, looking good, all right? Then I'll right click on half 2, activate that. I'll look underneath, and then again, I need to turn on my sketch, right? Sketch I used to make that hole over here in the browser, and then create, extrude, click there, and the bottom plane. Okay, and it joined by default, right? The colors are also really helpful because now I can see that it's red, right? Like if I hadn't been paying attention and I extruded this here by clicking on that down to here, and let's say it became a new body, I would look at this and immediately know that it's not part of this object because it's not red, right? So it's a good idea to work with colors. Extrude this to distance to object. That's another way to control this stuff. And it wants to join. That's weird. Extrude that to here. Join by default. Click OK. There you go. All right. Okay. So at this point, I'll just right click on this and then activate. So I'm at the top level now, looking at everything. We could 3D print this and it would work just fine, right? Like you could print this thing out, no problem. But I stay away from sharp edges, especially with 3D printing, for a number of reasons. One is they tend to split and chip. It depends on the kind of material you're using, but sharp edges tend not to stay sharp, especially with use, right? The other reason is it's uncomfortable. It's kind of tough on our hands. It's much nicer to hold something that's got rounded edges, that's got sort of smoothed out edges. So that's another reason. And the other reason is that aesthetically, I find it less appealing to have a bunch of sharp edges for something that's small that you're supposed to hold, right? So the way I deal with that is by using the fillet tool, right? That's here, the fillet tool. So I'm going to open this up like so, and we're going to go through here and start our fillet process. I have a specific way I do it that I'll explain here, but just follow along with me for a minute. So I'm going to start by going fillet, and I'm just going to click on vertical edges. Starting with vertical edges. I'm going on both parts here at the same time. Before I do this, actually, I should right click on clamp and activate. Notice how the timeline changed. If I activate this, see everything that happened. Activate this, I see the things that happened within this component. It just narrows down the scope. So if I want to go here and change something later, I can edit this feature, for example, deal with that. It's just easier to find things here, okay? So here I am, clamp component activated. I'll go to modify, fillet, and pick the vertical edges. I'll explain why in a minute. So I'm just clicking on all these things. That. I left these two alone, right? So all the vertical edges except the lower ones down here. And then let's give it a radius of 1. That looks pretty good. Click OK. Then I need to get these two guys in here. Fillet, that, and that. Make those also 1. Click OK. So that's sort of my first step for getting all those parts, right? The reason I did that is this. So if I go fillet here, click on that, make it 1, you'll see nice smooth edges, right? Got a nice little radius there. Looks pretty good. If I hadn't done that, say I go back here and right click to suppress that feature, so it's as if that never happened, right? Open this up. Look what happens when I fillet this now. So fillet, under modify, when I click on, I have to click on 2 things, and then you'll see I get a sharp edge there and a sharp edge here. I could go in and fillet those later, but things get a little messy. So I find it's helpful to do it this way. So you sort of do one axis at a time and try to think of it in terms of giving yourself continuous edges you can fillet later. You just get a cleaner result. So I'll go to modify, fillet, and then I'll start clicking on these other chains here. And it looks like I got that weird glitch again, so I'll right-click, activate the top component, right-click, activate clamp, modify fillet, this. We'll go to the underside and get that, that, and that. Notice I'm not filleting this stuff on the inside here. I'm not messing with all of this. And the reason for that is that I'm never going to touch it, and I'm never going to see it. It might be a good idea to avoid chipping and splitting and so on, but I'm not going to worry about it here. So I've clicked all those, and then I'll get this one and that one. Right? It's looking pretty good. So I'll make that 1 millimeter. Click OK. That looks good. So all that's left is the hasp openings. Right? So I'll go to create, modify fillet. Let's do the inside parts first. That, and this, and this. One, 1.5 maybe. You want to look in and make sure you're not getting anything weird in there, right? That looks okay. The 1.5, since this was a 3 millimeter offset there, 1.5 has given me basically an arc at the bottom that meets that. So I think that's going to work just fine. Okay. Look over here and I'll see that they're both cut out like that. I kind of end up with a pill shape, which is good because the hoop on the lock is round. So that'll fit nicely. Modify fillet. I'll just get these here. Again, this stuff is kind of elective. Like if you don't care about it, fitting properly in your hand, I wouldn't worry about it too much. So I made that also 1. And there we go. So if you want this to go back to 0, all you have to do is double click on the joint there, and then the degree that it's at right now will come up. Just make it 0, and there you go. So now you're pretty much ready. You can 3D print this. I'll show you one more thing with joints that's pretty cool. So notice when I click and drag this, it just kind of, it doesn't understand that they're different objects, right? It's just, they're passing through each other. It's as though they were made of smoke. So if I go here to assemble, I can turn on contact sets. I'm just going to enable all contact instead of making a contact set because there's only 2 parts. And click that. And now you'll see, I can drag it and then it's going to stop. It won't go any further, right? It stops at 0. Same thing on the outside. So if I click and drag, you see it won't go any further. It's showing me how far it can go. Click on that. It looks like 175.1 is as far as it can go. So it doesn't matter so much with something simple like this, but when you start getting things that are more complex, like this, that's really useful. Because now I know, oh, okay, well, it's not going to go any further. It's going to stop right there. It's got, now I know how far I need to make these slots that make that stopping action, for example. Very useful tool. An important thing to remember, if you're working with something like that involves gears, so I'll show you another project real quick. 7? Yeah, it's probably this. So this is another project. This is my eclipse lamp. So it kind of works the same way. You rotate this big disc, but it doesn't have the iris part. It just sort of glows from the inside. So it looks like a solid piece of wood when it's just sitting on the wall, and then you turn it and it glows from the inside. The way this is a dimmer though, right? The other one is just a switch. So when you turn it far enough, it just flips a little switch. You see it just goes on and off, right? This one's actually 2 gears, and it's rotating a potentiometer to make the dimming effect. So if I look at the back of this thing, rotate this, you'll see, I'm going to go to select, selection filter, and components. I just want to click the components here. Right click and hide. Just hiding stuff so we can see what's going on. I'll hide that too, just different parts. So when I click and drag this, you can see that this gear right here is driving this one, right? If I were to turn on enable all contact in this one, it wouldn't even move. The program would just stop, right? Because imagine all those little things it's having to calculate, right? It's touching on these little arc surfaces, and it's way too much to handle. So in this case, what you do is do a contact set. So I would go to make a enable contact sets, and then I would create contact set, and then I would pick the bodies that are doing that, right? So it would be like in this case here, I would make a contact set between this part, or the pin that goes in there, and this little hole right here. So those are the only two things that would be considered. So just remember that if you're doing something that's got gears, don't enable all contact because it's just not going to work. It's way too much information. That's the place where you want to enable contact sets for the bodies that are relevant. Okay.